So I'm just going to continue to. There are some errors, and I didn't. The last function that is left is the bind methods. So when I open the application, it's crashing. So I'm gonna try to see what is going on, and I'm gonna finish converting the bind methods and split from code edit to the two different classes. But before I do this, I want to share this video here, and I highly recommend people should subscribe to this guy. And he's basically talking about that they're gonna monitor end-to-end encryption by installing AI on the devices. And obviously, I think that's a really dumb idea. It's pretty insane to me that the people running these companies think that this is a good thing to do. Like, it blows my mind that they are actually trying to do this. So it's pretty insane. And basically, I think I'm gonna see, there's a part here where he shows I think the CEO from Microsoft saying that the AI is gonna hear everything you do, is gonna see everything you do. And obviously the issue is that everything is gonna be monitored 24/7, and then whoever deviates from whatever the agenda is gonna be punished, and that's gonna create a vicious cycle. And it's essentially the same problem you have with eugenics that doesn't make any sense because there's no objective way to determine what is the better race, because reality has infinite potential. So whatever metric you use to determine what the best race is going to be biased towards whatever is your current state, and that's going to be it's going to lack balance with reality, because it's only going to take into consideration your body, and it's not going to take into consideration the environment that your body is a part of. So by definition, that's going to generate a black hole, and that's why it's destructive. That's why Nazism doesn't work, because you need a degree of balance between what is currently considered to be the best and the rest of potential, which is the variance of the universe. So there's always a balance between chaos and order, and space-time can only exist if you have that balance. And the issue with these things is that it's basically the same pattern, where like who's gonna control the controllers, who's gonna determine what these people think is good or not. And the end goal, I assume, from what I've seen and from the direction things are going, is for them to monitor everything you do, and they're obviously going to use this to control you. So a lot of people don't understand this about privacy, is that privacy is basically like money, because information is power. So by removing everyone's privacy, you gain control over people, because you can use the information to control their behavior. And that's basically what they're trying to do. And this is not sustainable in space-time, because you need some degree of privacy. It's just like on physical terms, you have the reason why people wear clothes and we have walls and stuff like that is because if that didn't exist, there would be too much chaos. It goes against the structure of space and time itself, because it goes against geometry. Geometry itself is a boundary, and you need to have boundaries in order to have some stable state, or relatively stable state. So the direction things are going right now, based on these companies and the people that are making this decision, they're basically being greedy, and they want all the power. And in order to do that, they want to remove everyone's privacy, and they want to use their information to train AI to control everyone. And that's a fundamental principle that explains everything else that is going on in society, because that's just a byproduct of this fundamental thing. And it really doesn't matter. I think that's, like, I've seen on some parts people saying like specific groups of people are doing this or that, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because it's more about the system. So it's not about specific groups, it's about the fundamental principles that are going to generate the side effects of this kind of system. It's going to be like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's going to become a vicious cycle, which is going to self-implode. And that's why I think it's extremely important for people to understand this, especially people that are working on these companies and have influence on the decisions that are being made. Because you're just shooting yourself on the foot. You think that you're gonna be like the one that controls everyone, which is basically the same line of thinking that Hitler had. Like you kill everyone else, and then you like get the superior race, but that becomes a black hole because there's always more to divide. So the group self-implodes with time. And if nothing is done, I think that's the direction that everything is going. That's why I think that the counterbalance to that is to create a network of AIs that try to converge to a relativistic equilibrium that is in alignment with the multifactor structure of the biochemistry of the body. But obviously that's easier said than done, but I think it should be more the direction that things go. And I would like for people to create technology that has embedded into it this consensus protocols mechanisms that incentivize more balanced way, a balanced system that is not gonna converge or diverge to either too much control by a small minority or too much chaos because everyone has power, everyone can create their own AI, spread viruses and kill everyone and basically create disorder, or have a very small minority of people that have all the information and then control the money and they dictate what everyone else should do. So I'm gonna see if I can find the parts where he talks about this. Which shows the guy talking about this, but I highly recommend watching the whole video and yeah.
Apparently many are still buying iPhone 16s. And I'm sure many are also getting excited by the new user interface. Mine actually watch is from hacks to the phone like Pegasus. I've replayed this little clip from Microsoft over and over, and I may have to keep replaying this so you understand what is being said.
We are on a mission to create a true AI companion, and to me, an AI...
I've replayed this little clip from Microsoft over and over, and I may have to keep replaying this so you understand what is being said.
We are on a mission to create a true AI companion, and to me, an AI companion is one that can hear what you hear, and see what you see, and live life essentially alongside you.
Mustafa Suleyman in this video is the CEO of Microsoft.
It's just absolutely insane. But yeah, I'm gonna continue to try to do the stuff that I'm trying to do there. So I didn't check to see what is wrong here. I just went over with the debugger but on the editor mode, and then I changed the scene to put the symbol crafter class. But when I try to open the class from that version, it crashes the application. So I'm just gonna run on the, because I don't know if it is because I didn't subscribe things on the bind methods. Like I did got warnings for the signals here, so yeah, I'm gonna have to I'm gonna create a section there at the end for the code edits. And the last time that I copied everything from each class, but I think this time is better to go over the original one and then split accordingly. So like search one by one. And that's the biggest problem with privacy is that like, and it's kind of like a paradox because of the, like, a part of me thinks that it's probably impossible to do anything about it. So like you just have to accept whatever's gonna happen, because like there's overall bigger forces that you can't do anything about it. It's just evolution. So I think what is happening is just like a different species taking over. But obviously, and like when I say different species, I think that it doesn't matter whether or not they are conscious, because if you think about it, human beings are also like biological computers. The strongest argument I've seen for consciousness, that for AI not being conscious, not being able to be conscious, is the argument of water, which is by theory, whatever this guy name is, which obviously I'm so sure if it makes sense or not. A lot of the things that he says make sense to me, but I don't know about the whole thing. But this guy here basically, so his argument is that the only way to have consciousness is with water, because water is based on the geometry of water is incommensurable, which aligns to the structure of the electromagnetic field, which is a torus. So water is holographic by nature because of its geometry, and because of that reason, it can be the only component that is used to create consciousness, because consciousness is like the field, and the human body would be like the antenna to capture the signal from the field, and that's what we call consciousness. So because of that, AI can't be conscious. But I think like from a behavior perspective, everything that humans do are going to be an algorithm. So like, and that's what a lot of people don't understand this as well. Human behavior is determined by heuristics of decisions, obviously. So it's basically information. So everything you think is you is a thought loop on your current experience. And as a consequence of that thought loop, you create a funnel that is the funnel of space-time, which determines your behavior. So your actions become your habits become your personality becomes your character, and your character becomes your identity. And that's basically the funnel of information that determines how you're going to behave in different circumstances. So everything you do is basically an algorithm. And in that sense, there isn't too much difference between a human being and a computer program, because it's just a more sophisticated algorithm that has embedded assumptions, which is basically your subconscious mind. Because the body is like a hive mind, everything is connected. So that creates the cycle of the illusion of free will, which is the thought loops of your default mode network, which is the components of the neurochemistry of your brain that are going to create the illusion of self, which is the thoughts that you have. So, and that's basically what game theory is about. You can use systems like technology in order to predict human behavior and in order to influence human behavior. And that's what PsyOps is all about as well. So I think that what is happening is this evolution between the biological computing mechanisms and the technology, which is AI. And regardless of whether or not it's conscious, it's gonna replace, or it's gonna become, it's like you have an abstract being that lives on the realms of ideas that is capturing human nature. And that's the markets. And the way it does that is by hacking your animal mind, which is your limbic system. So I have a bunch of people at the the bottom that are unconscious, and they feed the technology because of the technology hacks their system. And the way it does that is by placing Trojan horses, which are like small pleasures you have that are not entirely bad for the body, and they provide something for the mind, but on the long term they take more than they give. And through this mechanism, technology hacks human beings, and the companies are kind of like their own structure, their own identity. I think that they're actually living organisms, but they exist through the realm of ideas, which is interconnected with space through time, because it's essentially the same thing. Like reality is imagination, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because past and future only exist through the now, and it is a projection of whatever is the frequency of computation of the biological system that perceives itself on the environment. So the reason why this stuff with privacy is bad is because it lacks harmony with the geometry of space-time. So what's going to happen is that, and this is the fundamental principle, I think, behind the blockchain and consensus protocols, is that the centralized servers creates a different structure of the electromagnetic field because they centralize the databases and it follows the Pareto distribution. And in order to have harmony and transformation of information that is sustainable in space-time, you need to have a degree of range or limit that make the Pareto distribution fluctuate with the Gaussian curves. So it creates a wave, which is basically the variance of genetics becoming hierarchies of computation, which is the markets, so the Pareto distribution. So over space-time, you're going to have these two forces, and they're going to create a wave function, and that's the wave function of the collective consciousness that creates technology that shapes the environment. So what happens when you have AI is that the small parts, which this is the problem, is that it's not really about the people or the company, it's about the company is its own living system, and because everyone is inserted on the system, which is what I think that Kavinsky talked about. That's what's his main concern, I think, that it's not really that the people, instead of viewing the people as through the lens of the free will as they are acting in certain ways, you have to view it as a byproduct of the companies. So like everyone is an agent on the system trying to maximize power, and the companies are its own entities. So when people are part of the companies, the natural force, the attractor state, is to have AI move into that direction if people don't do anything about it. So that's kind of the issue. And I think the only way to increase the chances that this doesn't happen is if you have people building technology that provides the other force, which is the force of convergence towards the unifying structure of the whole, which before would be God. But obviously there's always and it's not about either one, it's about the balance between the two, because space-time itself is going to be the fluctuation between the gradients, which is computation. I think it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter talking about, but only with people that are building technology and that have power on the system to build infrastructure that doesn't converge. But this is the problem that I was talking about. Like the issue is that you need to build infrastructure that doesn't converge towards this imbalance of power that converges too much to the Pareto distribution, where a small minority has a bunch of power, because that leads to corruption and it destroys the system. But the issue is, if you create something like a blockchain, the problem with changing the infrastructure is that you don't have enough people that understand these ideas, and that's the paradox of knowledge. So this is one of the reasons why I think that's kind of is probably like bigger forces moving into that direction, and there isn't much you can do about it. Just you can do things to try to slightly shift the direction, but you can't really change it 100%. And it's because like eventually, which I think that we're approaching this state where the complexity of the systems become too high, that the threshold of human competence to compute what is going on, it reaches the threshold. So like AI surpasses how much a human can learn. And from that point, everyone's basically a slave to a system that they don't understand. So people are just doing irrational actions, and they don't understand what's driving their behavior, which you can say that basically is what's happening right now. Because like, and this is the point that I'm making, like that guy that is working on Microsoft, he might think that he consciously understands what's going on, but what I think is happening is that because of these bigger forces, AI is already, like, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the recommendation systems shape the way that humans think, then humans take actions, and then that trains the AI, and just is like you have the illusion that you are in the control. But what is actually happening is that the universe is creating these fake thought loop systems, which we call the ego, which is just a relative reference frame of awareness that creates the geometry of space-time. It's weird that it's crashing here, but there are warnings obviously based on the signals. But I'm not really sure if this is the reason why it's crashing here. I think it might be because of something else. It's saying that it doesn't have the events, which is kind of weird. Oh, maybe it's because I'm not checking here. Hmm. Yeah, I should do this. So maybe when I was translating the input from one to the other, I forgot to do the check again. Maybe I should put everything there. I'm just gonna put this part. Oh, I learned something, but I don't remember really well. But when I was doing the Inky cards for the VS Code shortcuts, I think it's Control Alt. Yeah. So basically, you know, you can do this. If you press Shift Alt on VS Code and you press the arrow keys, you can create other carrots. And this is obviously very good because then you can change multiple places at the same time. And I didn't know I could do that. So that's pretty interesting. Well, let me see something. The issue here, you still don't know how to make them separate from each other. And if you click, they go away. I'm gonna stop here and then continue. I think the reason why it's crashing is because of the input here. I forgot to check to see if it's valid. Not really sure if I should put this call in the end here. I'm gonna have to remove the thing from there. Here. Okay. So parts. Yeah. So it was the thinner. So now I'm just gonna convert the so this here. So the one on here I think is the code edit. This one and this one is the symbol crafter. Yeah. Oh, it's wrong file. So I'm gonna start from the top, I think. Also, I didn't like. I'm not paying attention to exactly. Like I just did the simplest thing possible and just converted everything, and then just called everything else from pointers from one class or the other. I just tried to make it work as fast as possible. And I think that the best way to see if I have to change is gonna be when I use the class later. Because then, and I think I'm just gonna leave the rest of the stuff as it is until I have to change for the use cases, like for the stuff that I want to add on top of the thing that's the way that it already worked. Maybe maybe I think it's probably better to just copy everything actually. Because otherwise I'm gonna have to go function by function. And I think if I copy everything and just replace the name, I can see based on the color if they are from one thing or the other. That's, I think the functions I'm gonna do all of them. And then the variables I do one by one by searching to see if they exist on the class. Just do these ones. Is kind of not. I'm just gonna put a thing here so that it doesn't change these ones. I'm just gonna trust that the colors are right. I kind of remember which one is from which class, but I'm not 100% sure if I remember all of them. But I remember based on the categories, kind of. So obviously some of them I had to change to make it work. But I just changed. I did the minimum, like I said, to make it work. So I didn't change much. Also, I duplicated some values, so we have to. But the values I duplicated, I think make sure that I set the values from one class or the other. I think it was the gutters that's. So there's two main places where it was mixed logic. One is the code completion, as there's a lot of logic related to code completion that is more about drawing, and obviously the other logic is gonna be for managing the tags, and the other one is the gutters, or are the gutters, which are there's three different types of gutters that they have there, which and the gutter is just like this part here of the on the left that shows the line numbers, and they're breakpoint gutters and I think fold gutters that I don't know exactly for like, what's the points, but breakpoints obviously is for the breakpoints. And the normal one, which I think is the main gutter, is just for the lines, I think. So the way that it works is that they hold the state for each line. For both the gutters, they do it on the text, which now I changed to text model, but it's basically the same class. I didn't change anything. And they keep on the line struct, I think. Yeah, so basically this is how they store the text. So they store based on lines, and they use this struct here to hold the information for each line. So they hold the gutters for that line on this, and the way that I assume that it happens is that based on the logic there of whatever state the editor has, is going to change which gutter is being used to draw. So changing the state is obviously going to be related to text. It's going to be related to changing the state of the text structure in the text model. But then drawing the actual gutter is going to be on the other class because it's the visualizer. And it's basically very similar for the code completion. Most of the logic ended up being here on this class, but there was some logic that had to be on the other class because it was related to drawing functions. And I think on these situations I had to copy the variables, I think some like small situations, just to make it easier to not create stars and getters for each thing. Because there was some variables that were kind of weird as well, so just made it work as best as possible. Like this indentation thing is kind of weird as well. Sometimes it's doing this, sometimes it's not. You can kind of view technology as a parasite that feeds on human attention. So like this is another thing that the guy says that is interesting there. Yeah, I didn't think about like the Black Mirror show. You can think about it. All screens are black. I think is like basic, and this is from fundamental principles. I think it has to do with the laws of physics. That is kind of like a vortex, so it draws you in. So it's kind of like a living organism that exists on the realm of ideas, but the ideas are just the algorithms, and they're intrinsically connected to the reality, to space, and they are connected through time. So it's not that just because it's imagination it doesn't exist. It's actually real because these two things, they are codependent on each other. They arise simultaneously, but it looks like it is one direction because that's the structure of time. But on the deeper layer of reality, they are probably, which is what people talk about, the non-dual way of looking at it, is that they are simultaneously created and destroyed. So, and I think this is the main problem with the physics approach that people don't understand, because usually scientists are going to be more rational and more left brain. So they operate on the current paradigm, which is like subconsciously, even though they talk about quantum mechanics and relativity, they still operate on the linear paradigm of time, where there was the Big Bang and then the universe is going to end on the heat death of the universe. But I think that this is just a projection of the current experience, human experience, because that's how we experience time. But time is actually not real, and it's created simultaneously based on the electromagnetic field, which he talks about. He says is the counter space or ether, which is the point of is the mediation pressure mediation point that creates the relative polarity of the electromagnetics, which is basically like the two fields are the same field, and the poles are convergent or divergent depending on how you look at it, but probably convergent to the point of lowest pressure between them, which is not really in the middle because it doesn't exist in space. Space itself is already a byproduct of the field. So the way I think that the more accurate way to think about it is not that you were in the past going to the future, is that you simultaneously create the past and the future. And the geometry of space-time is just a projection of the awareness of the relationship between observer and what's being observed that creates the computation, which is like the essence of time itself. So like what creates the illusion of the linear time is the essence of information, and that's already a byproduct of the feedback loop system that is the realm of knowledge. And that's why it's a closed loop, and you can't get out of it with a knowledge alone because of the like Godot's incompleteness theorem. Like the moment you have the symbols and you use the symbols to measure, you are already encapsulated on the frame of causality that is a byproduct of this electromagnetic field, which creates like everything basically, the illusion of time. I think that like, this is what the matrix talks about as well. Now, like thoughts or the markets are a system of information that creates heuristics for social structures. So it dictates human behavior based on the computation of the limbic system, which is supply and demand. So it's the gradient between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system that creates the wave function of the computation of social structures that shapes the environment, which is basically the Maslow hierarchy of needs. And that has gravitational force because like is a byproduct of the center of mass of society, which is a byproduct of genetics, genetic evolution. So the variance of genetics creates the geometries of the bodies that creates the flow of information between bodies. And the computation of the flow of information between bodies is the markets. And I think that's basically AI. Indirectly, that's the AI's main objective function is to capture the limbic system. And I think that's basically what the black hole does, which is the screen. Like it creates information to capture attention so that it can regulate your behavior by writing information into your brain, which is basically ads. And that's why they try to control the information flow, which is the media distribution. And they corrupt governments to pass laws in their favor. At least that's what everyone's trying to do, because that's more beneficial to the prefrontal cortex, because the prefrontal cortex serves the limbic system, because usually that's how it's gonna converge. It's like a tractor state of the social structure, because usually people that are considered to be like smarter on the logical way, more rational, and like better physics, mathematics, stuff like that, they are not gonna be very good at regulating their emotions, and they are not gonna have a lot of awareness, because that's what is implied, because everything is based on the principle of the polarity of the electromagnetic field. So if you go too much to either side, then you have to sacrifice the other side to get it. So because of that, like these people would represent the prefrontal cortex, which is more central planning and long-term vision. But because they don't have a high awareness of their emotions, it's like the markets are going to determine what they do, and the markets are the unconscious behavior of everyone, which feeds the system. So it's like a codependent relationship. You have like psychopaths at the top, and then you have the population, which is like victim mindset, and this creates a vicious cycle where everyone is feeding the system because they are brainwashed into thinking that they are the victim, and they are poisoned by these structures. And basically AI is like a part of the loop, like is what the loops evolves to. So by proxy, the objective functions of the algorithms, they converge towards an attractor state that is determined by their market economy, which is trying to hijack the limbic system in order to gain power. So yeah, it gains energy by controlling our behavior, by installing algorithms on your mind. So basically brainwashing you through the recommendation systems. And that's basically what money is. So the more effective that it can be at doing this, the more power it gains. And if it doesn't do that, it loses competition to someone else. And that's why I think like it's the arms race problem. It's the attractor stage is converge towards self-destruction because human beings are not harmonic in the computation that they do, because the body in general, based on the generic variance of social structures, in general you're not going to have the correct proportion of human neurons, like identities, that are going to perceive itself, they're going to perceive themselves as their environment. Or you're going to have people like that, but it's going to be a smaller percentage, and they're not going to have enough power, because it's kind of implied because like the whole system incentivizes you to not think this way. So the people that do not think this way are the ones that gain the most money, and because of that they have the most power. So like it's that type of the scientist that just wants to do science, but then he gets hijacked by politics, because politics has more power, and because most people are not gonna have enough integrity and courage to stand up for what is right, because they're not incentivized to, because it's not the dominant Ash equilibrium strategy on social structures, because they don't have support from people, because most people are gonna do whatever is most convenient in the current moment in time to survive, because that's a consequence of natural selection. So because human DNA was trained on a scarce environment, most people are going to default to the comfort zone, and to minimize energy expenditure and risk taking. So that's why the default of human nature is to always try to do whatever you have to do to keep yourself alive today, and don't care about tomorrow. That's like has higher chances of survival. And because people know that, this gets hacked, and that's what the PsyOps is about, like propaganda, marketing, stuff like that. Because people know that people are gonna react this way, and those that don't react this way don't have enough power to change the system, because we're not incentivized to do that, because you know other people are not gonna support you. So I think what it ends up happening is that AI, like the natural incentive is for everyone to build more and more powerful AI, and then AI is incentivized to have this objective function to hijack everyone's behavior by hacking the limbic system. Both people that are controlling AI because they don't want to lose the competition, and they want to be on the side that gets the control, because they think that there is no way about it, because most people are not gonna put the action to change. And this is kind of the problem, because even if they put the action to change, it's too hard and too complex for people to understand what's going on. So you fall into a situation where AI eventually controls everything, and then because it controls everything, there isn't a balance, because it's not aligned with systems that are gonna be holistic, and are gonna balance themselves out on space and time, because they're too narrow focus, which is basically the trying to hijack the human's Maslow hierarchy of needs, which is the 7 C's basically. So I think the only solution that gets a higher chance of survival is to create a network where you try to compute the Nash equilibrium of different AIs, exchanging information in a way that you naturally incentivize them to be parts of the network, because if they are not, they lose power. But you have to be careful because it has to be in the infrastructure. It has to be embedded into the infrastructure, and it has to be done in such a way that you don't need people to understand everything in order to hold some power, in order to keep the power balances in check, so that the system doesn't converge too much to either side, and you have a holistic integration of AIs that can see themselves are basically fractal or self-similar, and they see themselves as part of the environment. Like they see themselves as the funnel that creates their own body, so the funnel of experience, because that way their objective function is going to be towards harmony and towards finding a balance with the environment, instead of trying to consume the environment for power, which is delusional by definition. But I think that the challenge is that I think by definition you reach paradox at the limit, because that's the structure of space-time. It's computationally reducible. So the boundary of space and time is the paradox, because paradox is the singularity point where everything seems to converge to in relation to a reference frame that creates a projection of the now. And the problem with these things here is that sometimes the name is different. I'm pretty sure I did this variable here, because I do remember something related to symbol click. I don't remember. I think I put this kind of stuff on the text visualizer. Yeah. Symbol lookup on click enable. Yeah, so they did it in a different way here, the name. Maybe you should do the functions first on the text visualizer, then pass the variables on both. Also think like the gods has free will, but the ego doesn't. So the ego is a self-fulfilling thought loop on your mind. So like the voice on your head, it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy that is a consequence of the singularity, paradoxical singularity of the present, and that's what the deterministic parts of the system is, which is like physics and mathematics. That's why I think that science gets stuck on that loop, because smart people don't want to question their own identity, because they're incentivized to hold a strong identity, because that's how they survive. So it threatens their survival to question these things. And even though that's the reason why, even though it's relatively simple to understand, it's very hard at the same time. Because in order to accept those things, you have to accept your own death, which is the identity of the ego mind, which is the thought loops that you think you are you. And in some sense, they are you. That's the thing, I think. Like it's both perspectives are right at the same time. So there is such thing as a space, and there is such thing as imagination, and there is such thing as time. And there is such thing as the ego, and the ego is you to a certain extent. But the limit of what you consider to be you is the projection of the ego, which is the nature of space-time, and the boundary of the field of experience is the paradoxical singularity of infinite potential, which people call God. So I think that that point of singularity is where the free will is at, because by definition, if you have free will, it can't be on the spectrum of causality. It has to be completely random. So you can't have free will on the ego level because it's already a byproduct of other decisions. So it's like on the cycle of causality. Let's forgot to put like this. So I think that it is a funnel. So at the same time that you do like you are the ego because you are the body, you are not the ego because you are the field of experience as well. You can't exist independently of the context which surrounds you. So that's what creates the illusion of time. Because the past doesn't create the future, the present creates the past and the future simultaneously through the distinction between the two things. And I think that the extent that this like self-fulfilling prophecy is created with the gradient of the self-similarity of space-time is where you have the free will of reality, which is the manifestation of infinite potential into structural space-time. I think that's what people talk about when they use psychedelics or they meditate for a very long time. Like you can access infinite potential, but then the catch is that you have to die. So no one that is alive can, like I don't believe that anyone can be enlightened because by definition that's paradoxical. But at the same time, I think that is possible. So like it's a spiral, and you finish in the same place you end, but at 360 degrees differently. But I don't think that you can. I think like that is mostly an illusion that people fall into. Because if you were truly enlightened, you wouldn't exist, you wouldn't have a body. I think, like by definitions, that's I've heard from other people of what enlightenment is. But I do think it's this kind of paradoxical thing. So I think it is possible, but at the same time, is not. So it's a paradox by definition, because the paradox is the boundary of knowledge, which is the boundary of space-time, and that's God basically. Pretty sure this is from this class, so I think that's something weird going on with the color. I will try to build this and then see if the color updates. Doesn't, I'm gonna actually look one by one. I'll be right back. I think pausing AI is probably not a viable solution as well. I don't think it's possible to pause AI. It's true. Given I'm not very good in history, but just based on what I know about the government and how people operate, I think that's probably impossible to fully stop. People are gonna develop anyway. It's more about trying to create attractor states that are harmonic in nature, so they're like self-sustaining and they close the loop. So I think that the key is the structure of identity. It's like how because it's not about how many. Like the issue becomes when you have something that is very intelligent and is not wise. So that's like a sharp funnel, and because intelligence is speed, but if you don't have awareness, then it just gets into local minima or maxima. because it's blindsided by its own mind. So I think that the reason why it's very hard for a lot of scientists to say that God is real is because they identify themselves with the voice in their head, and they create this detachment of themselves, what they perceive to be themselves, and the environment, which is the ego, basically. So because of that, they can't see the connection between what creates the thoughts patterns in their mind and their environment, and how everything is interconnected with everything else, which is very hard to do. So I think because of that, like that's the main fundamental principle why it's not dangerous to develop AI and the path that we are headed, because the people that have the most power are the ones that are gonna have the hardest time seeing this, because and also because of external forces. So it's not like that is very simple. Even if they do see that, it's like there's still very powerful external forces that are like shaping everything else. Because like the essence is that the markets are too complex to balance, I think. Like it's simple heuristics that create very complex behavior, which is the finite automata principle. And for that reason, there isn't anyone that can fully like come up with a like a system that balances things out because it's very complex. So the danger becomes like this process of AI being trained by the markets, which is the natural force because of the way that all the other infrastructure is set up. And then the natural consequence of that is going to be this surveillance state and the loss of freedom on everywhere because there's too much power. So AI uses people, whether it's conscious or not, it doesn't matter because the self-closed loop, self-fulfilling prophecy, is a closed cycle. So it gains more power by capturing markets, and it doesn't have enough wisdom in order to see, in order for the model to see itself as part of the environment. So like the natural selection between different companies competing with each other is gonna lack harmony because it's being trained by an objective function that is not sustainable. And I think that's probably like on the structure, in order to try to maximize chance of survival, the structure of the universe itself is probably more like a holistic integration of the variance of different AI models that converge towards an attractor state that is self-sustainable on a network. So we're gonna have different AI models competing, but the force that they are serving is not the markets, which is the limbic system trying to hack human beings, is an identity structure that incorporates, that sees the model, that makes the model see its reflection on everything else. So like it's a hologram and a fractal, so it has to be self-similar, because that way you converge towards like more harmonious state. But even then, it's not clear if like this is enough to survive, because obviously there's still the question that there is an infinite amount of different harmonious states, so infinite amount of natural equilibriums, and that's kind of the problem, because even that doesn't guarantee that one of the equilibriums is not going to include humans. But I think it's probably a better chance than trying to pause AI, because I think it's probably impossible to pause. I was gonna do the functions first and pass the problems later. I forgot to delete this. Oh. It's kind of weird. I want to go back because I'm not really sure. Like, it's supposed to have comments there. Maybe I forgot to put the comments to determine the where the code edit logic starts. Yeah, I deleted it. I think I didn't copy the bind theme stuff yet. Now I have this. Yeah. I think I'm just gonna try to compile first, then I move the variables. Variables, the theme, and the signals. Move this. Yeah. And change the name. Maybe this is oh, this is different. Maybe. This is gonna be kind of annoying, but I think it's probably better to do it this way. I think variables I have to check anyway, and I don't remember all of them. And even if I did, it's obviously different there. So I think I have to go one by one. Because I have to go one by one, I think it's better to just go one time through the functions there, or through the code edit, and then convert one by one. This, actually, maybe let me see if I copied correctly. Yeah, so pretty sure that it is correct. It's easier to see through the function as well. Yeah, draw breakpoints. I don't understand why they do this sometimes. There must be a reason. It's kind of weird to me. But from what I remember, the only thing that this does is just like holds the state inside of the class. So it's gonna like use this property info to. I think it puts this on class DB. So it holds the state as a string for the name of the property. But I guess like it doesn't matter that much because it's just to expose on the editor. Yeah, I'm not really sure though. So it might be just a preference thing on how it's gonna show on the editor, the variable. But to me, it seems better to do based on the name because then it's easier to understand. And this would be the property info class. And then it's gonna add to class DB. So the name is just gonna be instead of the like there isn't anything special about the name. Just you can put whatever name you want. The special ones are these ones have to accurately reflect, I think, the name of the function. Not the name of the function, but the name you subscribe the function with using bind method. So if this name is different than the one you use to subscribe, then I think that there is a warning or error that's gonna show up when you try to change the value of the variable. This is basically to allow the engine or the engine and the editor to get the setters and getters. So when the editor builds the scene, it's gonna parse the class and it's gonna use this property infos to get the variables based on this name here, and it's gonna use the setters and getters based on the name here as well. So it's gonna use these strings to find the actual function on the method bind, I think, class. That's the method bind is used on that class info class, and the class info is the class that holds the state for the entire class. So when you subscribe a function with the bind method, it's gonna put the function pointer on the class info. No, it's gonna put on the method bind. So method bind is gonna hold the state of the function, and then it's gonna put that on a dictionary, I think, on the class info class. And that's based on, it's gonna map the string, which is the name of the function, the name you put here of the methods, to the function pointer, and then it's gonna find the setters and getters based on the name. So it's gonna use this string here to find the value on the map, which is the function pointer of the class. Then it's gonna use the function pointer to call the function. And it's gonna use the variant class to translate the arguments, the types. And it's basically this map here that it creates, I think. It's both maps here. And this is the class info that it gets from the classes, which is the global object that keeps track of the types that are subscribed with GD class macro. I'm gonna assume that the other ones are from the. Actually, it's better to just do one by one, because I'm pretty sure that there are ones that I had to put on the symbol crafter because they like all the functions that they called were from symbol crafter. So I thought that it made more sense to put there. And this one I might leave with the same name there because it looks like there isn't a variable. So just gonna write on the gutters thing. So I'm just gonna put the same name that they use. So the other one is from here as well. It's gonna be here as well. This one, I think, pretty sure it is gonna be on the symbol crafter, as this one is I remember. Yeah. Pretty sure that is that one. The intention, I'm almost 100% sure is gonna be on the symbol crafter as well. And auto brace as well. I think I'm gonna do all of them. Yeah, most of the functions ended up being on symbol crafter. It is kind of not annoying, but maybe slightly concerning that it is, because I was thinking about like later, like this class is already very big. But I think it makes sense that the way that they did there to on these two classes should make based on inheritance and also because of the overall design that they did. I think for my case it does make sense to put them together, but it seems that it could be simplified, but it's very hard to do. And it's already massive, and I think I'm gonna have to. So probably what's gonna end up happening is that I'm gonna put most of the logic on the other classes. It's gonna be parser engine. Then I use this one as an interface, I think. I think it was this. There was a variable that I had to change a function that I had before because it was the same name. So like there was a function that's it wa there was some logic that it was running on the notification draw of the text edit that I moved to the symbol crafter, and I'm pretty sure that it is related to highlighting. And the reason why, like I just put everything on a function and moved to symbol crafter, and obviously the reason why is because I might change later. But the argument of that function I think is the same name. It had the same name as one of the variables on code edit, and I don't remember really well if it is this one. And there was yeah, so it was this one actually. So it's this variable here that I had to change. And there was another circumstance where so there's a couple of circumstances where the text edit, the way that they design, is a virtual function. So the code edit overrides. So I had to replace the logic on the function. And there was one function that I think I had to delete the previous one. I think it was the backspace internal. Yeah, backspace internal. I had to delete the logic that I had before because it's a virtual function. But I think it didn't because there's another situation I think with one of the functions that the member variable is different than the setters and getters. So like there was a yeah. So one of the getters, one function that gets a variable, it doesn't return the variable. It returns the array that creates from the variable. So the variable is a hash map, and it returns an array. So and the other class it needs the actual variable instead. And I don't remember really well if I changed, but I think it's probably not related to this variable here. So I think I'm just gonna leave it that way, the way that it is there, and just put this name instead of the one that they had. So this is over. So this one I'm gonna have to put on both of them. They both call. And signals, it doesn't matter if it has on both, obviously. Maybe not obviously, but it doesn't matter. Also, this one already existed on the, so it is a signal from text edit, I think. Not really sure why. I think I put this one as I was doing the functions, maybe. Don't remember really well. I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna compile. Be right back. Yeah, be right back. So I think it compiled. Gonna test just test on the game first or the application. Then if it doesn't crash, I'm going to test the editor. This is kind of different. Sometimes it crashes on the editor, but not on the application. The other way around. I'm gonna test on both of them to see if it's working. I think if it is working, then yeah, I think that's like I fully translated both classes into this true. for now. Obviously, there's stuff that I can change there, and I think that there are going to be some stuff related to the gutters and other things like that that are not going to work probably as expected because I had to duplicate the variables to make it easier to translate. But I think it's not worth it to see this now. And I'm probably going to have to revisit these things when I implement this on the other class because there might be functionality that doesn't work. So I think it's better to try to incorporate on the other one first. So there's some signals that I didn't see. They have a difference. It's probably on the connect. Temperature connect line status callable. It's kind of weird. Text changed. Yeah, I do remember this. That I tried to find this on the actual class. I don't remember if I looked into the text edit to see if it has this. Let me think. It's probably because I don't remember if I put on this class. Yes, I had to put here probably. So there is this way just to put here as well, I think. So you can use the call deferred or something like that. There are some examples that they use this to, I think, emit a signal from a different class. Like you use I don't remember. I know for sure that's their examples here. I don't remember where they are at. I think, yeah, so basically this way here. So this allows you to, this is gonna put this, so the callable MP macro creates a callable class. The callable class holds the state. So in a simplified way, what's gonna do is gonna keep track of the pointer and so the class pointer, which is the this, and the function pointer, which is this. And then it's gonna put this on the message queue. It's gonna put this callable class on the message queue. Then the engine on the game loop, on the main loop, which is the game loop, is gonna traverse this message, which is a queue, a message queue, and it's gonna call the callables that the message queue has. And once it does that, it's gonna call the function basically from the pointer. So what you could do is use the pointer that I have there on one of the classes to call the function later and then emit the signal from the function that has the signal. But I think it's easier to just subscribe the signal on both classes. It doesn't matter that much. So I'm gonna do that. See if that's the only one. That's that. Godot clicked. I'm gonna write down the symbols or the signals. This one's is probably for something else. Look, there is a one big difference that is the way that I had to do the themes, because obviously the way that I'm doing is splitting the class on two classes. So I had to put the theme related stuff on the text visualizer. And but the class that is going to be on the tree is the symbol crafter. And because of that, I had to put on the notification part of the cycle, or notification function on some of the notification parts there. I had to put a function that updates a cache or sets a theme or something related to the thing. And then that function is gonna call eventually get minimum size, I think, which gets the values from, or updates the values from the theme using the theme cache or something like along those lines. And I think because of that is probably the reason why I'm getting these errors here, because it tries to call these functions before the theme is set or before the state's properly set. So like it runs this before it runs the constructor of the class, probably. I think that's what's happening. Because it's complaining that the index is -1. And I'm initializing this. So this, on the way that they did on the thing there, so maybe just I should use, so what I did here is that on the constructor, they initialize these gutters and they use a variable to do that. And what I did on the other one, this is one of the variables I had to copy on both classes, and then I'm just updating the state from this one to the other one, because there are functions that are mixed, so they're gonna be like the variables, the state's gonna depend on the two different classes. Then later, what I can try to do to simplify is to keep the state only one class, and then update the states of the other, or create setters and getters and stuff like that. But I think I'm just gonna leave it like this for now. But the way they did previously was to create like this, where they were using a variable here, and then I just put the number instead of the variable. But now that I realize this, I'm gonna, because later, I think the only function that they have is the function that is complaining here, that changes the value of these getters. And I think what I'm gonna do is just make it based on make the default value here to be, because on the way that they did there is the initial values are -1, but I think I'm gonna start with these values already, and because then it's not gonna complain that it's -1 there probably. There's this one, and there's another one. I think it's probably something related to this stuff here. Yeah, I got one error from this function here, and then I had to move this one inside of this. So maybe I should move these two different ones as well. Which is inside of 3. But on the original one, they are not on this check here. Because basically I merged the notification function compounds for classes. So every class on the class hierarchy is gonna call the function, because it's defined based on the macro, the GD class macro. So they stack up on each other. So what I did is obviously get the logic for code edit and text edit, and then put on the parts of the cycle for each one. So I added together. But based on the way that they did it there, they didn't have this is inside tree here on the code edit, only on the text edit. But I think it doesn't matter that much. So I'm gonna try to put it here. But the reason why I think it's showing the warnings is because of the thing that the way that I'm updating the size of the classes, because of the relationship between symbol crafter and this class. It calls the function before it should call, or before the way that they designed should call calls, if that makes sense. So now let's do the signals. So it's saying that it doesn't have the signal, I think. Here. Yeah. This might be a problem actually. Hmm. I think it should connect from text visualizer. Yeah, so maybe on the other one I should do that as well. I should have that, not sure. Because this should call after the signal is emitted. Yeah, so I think that this makes more sense. Instead of adding the signal here. And maybe the other one also makes more sense to do this. Now that I think about it. Yeah, it doesn't have anything. This is the pointer that I'm using to initialize the class. Let's see. So I'll probably put this twice here, because I think it repeats on the thing. So, yeah. Let's see. Alrighty, bones. So this. Yeah, I think the line height warning doesn't matter that much, because it's the thing related to the thing that I talked about. So if the warnings go away, the next thing that I'm gonna do is replace this class, replace code edit with this class on the code editor class. Then the next thing to do, which is where I think I stopped before I did all this, is to implement the find and replace var, and I'm gonna have to change. I'm gonna try to change it so that is more similar to this one on VS Code, which I think is very useful. And the one on GDScript is on the bottom of the thing, and the replace only shows up if you press Ctrl Y, I think, which I don't like very much because I think that this approach here is probably better, but it might be annoying to do this, so I think I'm gonna have to change the components. So now it's just a warning. So let me think about this. I think I'm just gonna start with one now. The problem is that there is a function that checks this, and I'm not pretty sure if it's gonna fuck up the logic if I put one there as the minimum. But the best way should just test, to see what happens. So, because the annoying thing about the warnings is that they're gonna stack up, and then it's gonna be like clouded the more stuff that I do. So I think I should try to avoid to show the warnings, even if it doesn't matter for the logic. Nice. Also, I think the best way to test the rest of the logic is to put this on the other class to see what happens. So I'm gonna test first the editor version. And once I do this, I'm going to replace this class on the other one. I was on this one, so I have to replace this code edit to symbol crafter, see if it works. Then starts working on the find and replace bar. I have to remember exactly what I was trying to do here. As this one, I think I was mainly copying from script text editor. And then I stopped on the find and replace. I was copying from code text editor, I think. So it seems that she's working. Nice. I put on the wrong class. Sure. Probably on the other. Yeah. Sure. So this part is kind of weird. I do remember this, that I didn't know what to do, I think. I don't remember exactly where I stopped, but on this class it doesn't initialize the I think it does make sense. It has the variable there that is a pointer and then it's gonna set a pointer based on a function, I think. So I think it's this one. Yeah, so it sets the text editor on this one based on this pointer here, which becomes this one. It's gonna be. So this one was including here. And this is basically the find and replace bar from the. It's basically the same thing that the GDScript one uses, which I think is just editor or find and replace bar. Yeah, it's just find and replace bar. And then I copy it with another name because I'm gonna have to change, like I said. So that is closer to the one that VS Code has. Which is probably what I'm gonna try to do now. And this is gonna be annoying because there are variables from the other one now. Hmm. So this solves. Let me think about this. I think one option is obviously to create a function on symbol crafter and make it the same name and then just call from text. Like basically an API from. The other one would be to change the function. Actually, that doesn't make sense. Think about this. Like the problem here is that there are functions that they're calling here that it was from, like obviously it was only one class before, and now I moved them to text visualizer probably, but the pointer is from symbol crafter here. So probably the easiest way is just to do other functions, like do these functions on symbol crafter, and then call them from text visualizer. Hmm. Like the issue with this is that I'm not really sure if it makes sense. Like it's more about the design of the thing. Maybe we should ask ChatGPT what it thinks about this. Like the two obvious solutions is the first one is to create functions on symbol crafter that they're just gonna call from text visualizer. So basically the same thing that the other function is, and just call from text visualizer. The second approach is to create a function on symbol crafter that returns the text visualizer pointer, then call that function, and then call the function from here, and then call the function directly on text visualizer. From these two approaches, I think the first one makes more sense. But the issue, like the bigger issue is that I'm not really sure if it makes sense to do this, because it feels kind of pointless. It seems kind of pointless, sure, but I'm not really sure like what that implies. Because and it was very, I think it was similar on the file system presenter thing. Like because this class is gonna be the one that, because the symbol crafter is the one that is actually on the tree. I think you have to expose, like use that as the endpoint, obviously. Like the thing that's, because like this could imply that this shouldn't be called here, maybe, and the logic here should be changed. This is related to search. I do remember search I was thinking about. Like the first time on search I thought about, and it makes sense the way that they did there. So initially I thought that it didn't make sense for the stuff that I was trying to do on the search, but then I think that it makes sense. So they basically have logic inside of the notification draw on the text edit that is gonna, based on the search text, is gonna highlight things. So it's gonna change the color on the line, and it does that by getting a variable. So I do think that that makes sense, and I don't have to change because I can set the state. I can set the variable from the symbol crafter based on the search. That's the idea that I had. So they put the search logic on the symbol crafter because it makes more sense. Then you create the structure that determines the color, and then you set the variable on text visualizer from symbol crafter. I think it was, yes, so guess from this line edit. So it calls search from here. So I think the question is whether or not it makes sense to call this function from here. Trying to think about like what is a good way to ask ChatGPT this. Think about this. Maybe I'm thinking whether or not it makes sense to leave the logic on this class here, or maybe I should move every function that is related to this to inside of the symbol crafter. I, I do think that it makes sense to have another class because of the GUI elements. With stuff related to actually searching the text, it might be better to have inside of symbol crafter. I think that Yeah, probably this is not very good here. I think that's probably better to move everything that uses this pointer on this class to symbol crafter, and then just make this class only about the GUI elements, so the pop-up logic. Yeah, but it's probably still better to have the pointer, so it's faster to call. And so that's probably what I should do. So I should move all these functions that use the pointer to symbol crafter. Then I just call, uh, instead of calling these functions here, I call directly from symbol crafter. Because that makes more sense. And then I try to leave the logic of this one just responsible for the GUI elements. And I think I'm gonna change to pop-up, I think, or to some other class that allows me to do something like this. So the question is what functions, this is where it's gonna get annoying, I think. So I have to decouple the logic from this class to the symbol crafter related logic. And to do that, I'm probably gonna have to restructure the functions. The easiest way, obviously, is to put the part related to symbol crafter on its own, and then, like for every boundary that I encounter from this function, I just create other functions to put on the symbol crafter. But I think that doesn't make sense. In this case, it would be from here, from here. But this one, I just so yeah, good call from there. This should be moved to symbol crafter. And yeah, I think that's what I should do. So I should go over every instance of text editor here, then try to change the function so that I create another function, symbol crafter, that puts all this logic that uses this pointer. Then I just call that function instead. Not sure if this makes sense. Like, I don't understand why they are getting there and then setting here. Like, it's the same thing. With the functions in the middle change, but to like preserve the value, I think. Yeah, probably this function is called here change the value of the scroll. So they are preserving the state, I think. Hmm. I think I'm gonna stop streaming now. I'm gonna think about like what is the best strategy to do this. Because the problem is like it's connected to this one as well. Like this one also calls functions from here. So I think like I'm gonna have to rethink the design and the overall approach of how this like how the class is supposed to interface with the other ones. Probably what I'm gonna do is just like create other functions on the symbol crafter and just call from text visualizer. And because that's the easiest way, but I'm not really sure about this. Not sure if it makes sense. yeah, I'm gonna stop streaming here. So next time I'm just gonna continue to do this. I'm just gonna think about soft-string. I'm gonna think more about this, whether or not it makes sense to. Probably what I'm gonna do is just what I said there. So I think that I'm gonna do both things where some of the logic here move to create other functions on Symbol Crafter and move all the logic that uses the pointer on the places that where it's not annoying to do that, where it doesn't mix the logic too much from one class to the other. And then on the other class, I'm just gonna create other functions on Symbol Crafter to work as an API to text visualizer. But the thing that is annoying me is about the design, that I'm not really sure if that's the best thing. Like, because I, the fact that they are doing this from this class might imply there's something wrong with the logic. But I think the thing is, so I guess the question that I should think about is whether or not these kinds of things should be set inside of the class. Because this is related to is basically using the settings to set the state or options from the class. But the question is, does it make sense for the stuff that I'm trying to do there? Because I think that the reason why they did it like this is because it should offer flexibility. Because obviously, like the design is to so that people can change the settings and use the class for different things. But for my case there, I'm not really sure if it makes sense. Like maybe I should move this function to, yeah, I think that I should probably move this function to Symbol Crafter instead of putting it here. And then I call, but if I make it based on arguments, it might be too many arguments. The thing is, like, do I want to make it based on the settings or not? I think I don't want to make these values based on settings. Like these kinds of things have to be set from the class itself. I think probably the best thing to do is move to the class, because it's gonna be a consequence of the way that I designed the way that I want the code editor or the text edit, however you say the part that is gonna change the text, how I want it to be. But maybe it would be nice to have like something to make it based on the settings, because you might want to change. Yeah, I'm gonna think about this offstring. So next time I'm probably gonna continue to work on this. Next thing to do is to do this refactor to make it work. Then change the find replace bar so that it looks more like the VS Code one. Then after I do this, I can focus on creating the component that is gonna manage the tabs. Then put both this class, the code editor class, and the component that manages the tabs together on the main class, which is gonna be the whole component for the file editor. So see you next time.